over it or something, just stop me and raise your hand or jump up on one of the mics. So I'm here. I'm David Gibson, senior animator, Blizzard, working on Overwatch, which is a great honor. This is Mei, which is one of the 21 heroes, which is why this is called How a Hero is Made, because puns are awesome. Today we're going to talk about, I want to go through the animation style of Overwatch, what we're thinking as we work, and just some of the pillars that we have as we bring all these characters to life, and how we're trying to push gameplay animation to hit a certain style and match the awesomeness of the art. All right, and then I'm also going to go through my own process for when I get a new character and I have to start it out, and kind of like what's going through my head, and how I organize my thoughts, and what I try to do before I even start animating and all that good stuff. But before we do that, let me advance one more. Let's talk about me just a little bit more. Graduated from Ringling in 2004. That was a great experience. Probably the most important thing I learned at Ringling wasn't necessarily animation. It was how to give and receive criticism, which I think is the most important thing. That as animators, that's what we need to know how to do. Someone asked me one time what it's like to be an animator, and I said, every day as an animator, you spend, you're just told what you did wrong the day before, and that takes some, thick skin to learn, like, okay, it's not personal. They just want my work to be better. It's not about me. Then I jumped into EA, and I really wanted to be in games, but Madden for a year wasn't a good fit for me. I'm not a big football guy, and I tried really hard to play it, but I wasn't too into it. And then I got the opportunity to come up here, actually, and work in Berkeley at Tippett. Starting on Charlotte's Web and then moving through Enchanted, and I didn't work on Cloverfield, but Cloverfield came through when I was there, and a couple other really fun shows. Lots of creatures, lots of acting stuff, and some really great animators over there that I got to work with. And then after that, in 2009, a buddy of mine that I went to school with actually called me. He was down in LA at ImageWorks, and he was like, "Yeah, we got this project that we think you'd really like." I'm like, okay, I'll hear you out. What is it? And they're like, well, they're making a movie adaptation of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I was like, well, that sounds stupid. Like, that's, why are they doing that? But then I went down, I checked it out, and I was like, okay, I got to work on this. This is really awesome. So I got to do that down at ImageWorks, and I worked on a few more films there. So I felt like moving through all of that, I wanted to end in games. I wanted to get into games, but I didn't have the confidence as an animator yet, and I felt like now, after doing the VFX thing, games for a little bit, and then finally doing feature film, I felt confident enough that I knew animation and I could do it, to now go and jump headfirst into a game and really try to take everything that I learned from film. And that's when I joined Turtle Rock in 2011 for Evolve. That was a ton of fun. It was a very challenging experience. It was a small team, but I basically went to video game school for 4 years, and I learned how to make a game from scratch, from start to finish. Made a lot of great friendships and learned a ton. And then now, it's only been a year that I've been at Blizzard. Actually, like almost exactly a year. I joined Blizzard a year ago to work on Overwatch. And so I was kind of on the outside, like everybody else, when Overwatch was announced. I was like, whoa, what is this? This is so cool. And I just remember thinking, I want to animate those characters. Like, those characters are so awesome, and they're so colorful. It's not dark and dreary and death and destruction everywhere. I mean, everyone's dying, but it's bright and colorful death, and it's kind of like happy and poppy. And so that's where I am now. So I'm at Blizzard, and it is awesome. So just real quick, in case anyone doesn't know what Overwatch is, it's a 6v6 PvP team-based character-driven FPS. At launch, we're going to have 21 heroes to choose from. Each hero, as far as the animation goes, all assets are created unique for each character. That way we sort of ensure that each one is handcrafted and we're giving it the love and attention that each character deserves. And then that's pretty much it. And then No Pressure, it's also Blizzard's first new IP in 17 years. So, we're trying really hard. We want it to be really awesome. And I know I speak for the animation team in that we're really proud of the work we've done. And we're just excited, and we get pumped up by all the energy that everyone has for the game already. Now, if anyone else still doesn't know what Overwatch is, let's just watch part of one of the badass trailers, just real quick. I get the feels from that. I don't know about you guys. It's like, gets super pumped up. Let's go punch stuff. This first slide, I want to start out by going back into what I was saying about all of the characters are created from scratch, and each one is a unique entity. And this slide is meant to kind of show each character just in their idle pose, what we're trying to do to communicate character, some personality, maybe movement speed, what kind of class they are in the game. So right off the bat, you have Zenyatta on the top left. He's probably a healer, some kind of support guy. He doesn't look like he's going to be rushing in the front of the fight. But then down on the bottom left and the bottom right, you have Reinhardt and Zarya, who, they have this really wide, strong stance. They're low to the ground. They hold their weapons really low because they're really heavy. Not to mention the visual design of all the characters also supported as well. Reinhardt has the big sharp shoulder pads, the sharp helmet. Pharah is a good example, top right, of her stance really supports her aggressive assault class, where she's sort of poised to take off. She's kind of leaning back a little bit. And then Mei, right there, the cute one, don't worry, I can talk about her for days. She's a little, she's a little bit more unsure. She's not as confident as these other guys. She's not as fast. She's not as ready to get in there and rumble. And then you have someone like Tracer down in the middle, in the bottom. She's one of the fastest characters, and she's really peppy, and she blinks around, teleporting all over the place. So she's squat. She's got, her knees are always bent. She's ready to go. And so is that slide. Doesn't want to do it anymore either. Okay, now this is a good example, like just breaking down just one asset. I'm gonna move through some of the animation kind of principles that we're trying to apply anywhere we can in any asset. This is what we're trying to do. So this is just Tracer's jump, where we're trying to just push it a little further than normal, and just something as simple as stretching the torso out, having her hang just a little bit longer, and really squashing her down when she lands. Her head is tucking in. Everything is supporting just this basic principle of squash and stretch right here in a gameplay asset. The next one So this one is this is a good, clear example of some of the timing that we're trying to hit in the game. she could just kind of bring them up. She could just kind of bring her guns up and reload and bring them right back down. But we try to hold things just a little longer than they need to be held, and have like a snappy, move out of it to really have that kind of snappy, fun, stylized look to the animation. And then using that same one, here's a good example of of how we use overshoots. So also she's, the guns aren't twinning when they come down, that kind of thing. But she always goes by just a little past where she needs to end up in the pose. There's a nice little settle in her chest and torso there. And then I always love to track arcs. And there's a great arc on the tip of the guns as they come down. That's nice to look at. It's pretty simple stuff. I don't want to, this is not hard to grasp, but each of these broken down and then reapplied back when you go to sit down and animate, and you're kind of thinking about it is going to really help you out. And this is what we're thinking every time we sit down to make an asset. Now this one's a lot of fun. So you don't see it on the left, you don't see it in motion, but then you can see what Kyung-ho did here where her head is just totally left behind there for that overlapping action. Okay. And that's happening throughout. Every asset we're trying to sneak this stuff in. It's one of my favorites. Now, this is a good example of where we're applying the same idea to first-person animation. And everything is kind of happening here. There's nice overshoots. There's nice timing in here. The one on the right is slowed down, and you can really get a sense for the arcs that he's tracking. And you'll also notice, if you look on the one on the right, if you notice right around his elbows and his forearms, there's kind of like a bulging sort of thing that's happening there. And, that's a little bit of that squash and stretch put in there. And we have some of the best rigs I've ever worked with. Don't mean to brag or anything, but they are so much fun to animate with. And we have these bones that right on top. We call them noodle bones. Most places I think call them noodle bones. They right on top of the typical arm bones. And we have them throughout the entire character, through the torso, down through the legs. What this allows us to do is we can non-uniformly scale and translate and rotate these bones, and they'll ride along on top of the skeleton underneath. So what Michael's doing here is he's scaling and translating those bones to help kind of push, really show that force moving through Zenyatta's arm as he fires. And it feels awesome. When you play him, it feels awesome. When you look at the one on the left, it feels, there's something about it. You're like, oh, this feels so good. And when you slow it down, you start to see, like, okay, it's just these little tiny fundamental things that we're sneaking in. Now, this one is my ultimate favorite. I am guilty of putting these in all over the place. This slide's a little busy, so if you want to look let's look at Cowboy first on the left. Here, you know what? I'll talk to you guys over here for a second. We'll take a look at Cowboy. So we try to put smear frames in whenever we can. It's a lot easier to do it when you have a fixed camera. And I like to think of the smear frames. I did both of these animations here, and I like to think of them more like I'm making up for a lack of motion blur. So when something moves really fast, I want to try and help you see it, because it might get stroby or you might lose it. But with Cowboy on the left, it was more, I was trying to craft just like a really nice pose as he turned around, and I wanted you to be able to see his head the whole time. And so in order to do that, I just yanked his arm way out. And I was looking at a lot of like kind of anime, Japanese style stuff where they'll break the character all over the place just to get like a really nice strong pose. And it ended up feeling pretty good. We try to do this with in-game assets as well. I might have an example later, like on Mei'd's jump, I stretch her arm out, like her hand and her fingers out a little bit when she jumps up. But otherwise, smear frames are kind of tricky to pull off in game space because you never know where someone's going to be when they're viewing it. And then for Diva on the right, when she pulls her hands off the controls, when I was first animating that, it felt really stroby, and I was losing her hands coming off the joysticks there. And I realized that if I could just, if I had some motion blur there, I feel like it would help me show that I want it to feel fast, like, because she's ejecting. And so I just kind of stretch out her arms and stretch her fingers out just to create some nice arcs in there. And same thing when she's up in the air. She spins around really fast. So I'm just trying to elongate out her leg there just to try and give the sense that you don't see it at speed. This is why I think it's just so much fun. And then it's actually a similar trick with the arm, kind of just, I want you to be able to see her face as she's pulling that gun out. So I'm just putting her arm above her head there. And just, again, creating just a really fun, nice, appealing arc. Any questions so far? Yeah.
Is there any plans to show a breakdown of the rig?
So you asked if I'm going to show a breakdown of the rig. I have an image that has some rig elements in it. We can talk about it. I'm happy to talk about it, but I wanted to try and keep this talk a little bit more animation, but I'm happy to, share some info. Or if you have some more specific questions, we can definitely go over it. I'll spend some time on it when we get to the slide with the rig stuff. So this is Mei. Now, a little bit of the story for how this happened. So I joined the team last year, a year ago, and I come in and there's already 18 heroes done, right? And this game is already super awesome, and everyone knows about it, and everyone's pumped. And so I'm just two things I'm thinking at the time. I'm like, I want to do a shipping character. I want to animate a shipping character, right? I'm like, oh, please, 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 I hope I get a character that ships. And then I'm thinking oh, please don't screw this up. Oh, if I get a shipping character, I can't screw it up. So there was a very high bar already set. So I was super nervous about that. Just to give you guys an idea of where I was at when I landed there. And then here. The tech was already rock solid, so the engine was fixed, the rigs were fixed, everything was working just perfectly, the game was great, so it was really about finishing out these characters, and my main goal was how can I just drive home this personality, how can I just make her the most appealing, just the most, just characterful character in the game. With the tools I had. The animation style was locked down, so again, it was my challenge was how do I push it? How do I embrace that stuff and just really take it further? And then she was the last defensive class, which means she's gonna be front and center at BlizzCon. She's gonna be in front of people, and it's gonna be a big deal for everyone to see it. It's not like she was just landing halfway through development and she was gonna be lumped in with all these other things. So there was a lot of, I was pretty stressed. There was a lot of nerves there for me. Again, I just didn't want to screw it up. Now, let's talk a little bit about how the whole process starts. These are a bunch of concept images that Arnold Tsang had done, and Ben Zhang had done the images for the weapon stuff, as well as the drone. The way we start this, they do all these drawings. They do all the concept guys and the art directors get together, and Chris Metzen and Michael Chu's the writer, and they figure out okay, with the designers, what class do we need? What kind of abilities do we want? What do we want them to look like, and where are they from? What's their origin story? Then this art kind of comes my way, and then I sit down with all those guys, and we just brainstorm. We're just kind of talk about okay, well, what does everyone want to see? What does everyone think about her? Or, any limitations? That kind of stuff. And it's really great because it's this nice little 30, 40-minute conversation that I'll just sit with Chris Metzen, Michael Chu, Arnold Tsang, other guys, other character artists and stuff. And we'll just kind of try and figure it out. What do we want to see? What are we missing in the game? What could we do better? What do we want to try to get in there? so for her, the stuff that they really wanted to see was like, well, she's a nerdy scientist. She's shy, and more importantly, she's younger than all of the other heroes. But she's friendly and she's outgoing. But what I took from that conversation was, she's not 100% confident, right? She's a little bit unsure of herself. She wants to see the bright side of things. She's positive, but she's not yet the strong, confident superhero that some of the other characters are in the game already. So what do I do with all that information? The first thing is that I get up and I go and I just talk to people. I'll pick the brains of concept artists. I'll ask the art director. I'll ask designers. Sometimes I'll just stop someone casually in the kitchen, and just be like, well, what do you think about this? Or, just try to, I'm trying to get the temperature of the room, right? Like I'm trying to figure out like where everyone's thoughts are. And if I start to notice a trend, or if I start to notice that people are thinking one way or the other, that helps me to kind of keep my goals in check and know that, if I veer too far off, like no one's going to really be into it. And so that's going to cause me a problem down the road. So I encourage you, next time you have to start a character, just ask everyone on the team, like sort of just casually, you don't have to make it like super, like a meeting or super important. Just so that you can try to get things in there that other people want to see. That's the other part of me asking them questions is, once it's done, I'm trying to figure out, like, once the character's done, what is there that other people on the team want to see in that character? And it could be something about the character. It could be, some kind of character flaw or trait, but also it could just be, I really want to see the coat flaps move nicely, or I want to see the tube on the gun or something. Like it could be also just kind of technical, and that stuff's important too. But you wouldn't know any of that if you didn't go and talk to people. The other question that's really important is, are there any gameplay restrictions or design limitations? So I mentioned the tube on her gun, and she has this backpack on as well. That means she can't, she's a little limited because she has this tube that connects the gun to her backpack, so she can't do a lot of crazy movements. So always one hand is going to have to be holding the gun, essentially. And that's something good to know. The other thing was that the gun could be one-handed or two-handed. No one really cared. So she could hold it with two hands, or she could just hold it with one. And that's good to know, because if someone was like, it's a two-handed weapon, it's done, make it two-handed, then I know, okay, I got to figure that out. I got to make that work. And then, if someone feels really strongly, if someone has a really good idea about what they want to see in the character, then I ask them, like, okay, send me examples, send me things that you like that sort of remind you of the character that you want to see when it's done. And that stuff helps me immensely, because I can't find everything. I can't find every piece of inspiration or reference. And that, again, that helps me stay aligned with the team to make sure that they're getting what they want out of it as well. Now, more on a personal process level, this is one of the biggest steps for me when I start. And when I call it reference and inspiration, it's because I'm not looking for something to copy. I want to find something that has a feeling that I like. First note is be open to everything you find. And what I mean is, you might sit down and, I wish I went to the zoo, or I wish I did all this other stuff, but real world constraints, most of my reference gathering is a Google search. When I'm actually like trying to gather all that stuff so that I can easily look at it later. But what I mean is, you might type in something, I don't know, girl with glasses. You're going to get a million things, but there might be something in there that you didn't even think about that you see. And so what I mean, be open to everything you find, is don't tell yourself you're looking for one specific thing. Just kind of browse, just kind of be open to it and just kind of take it in. This is super important to me with reference and inspiration. You know, a lot of people will say, well, before you start an animation, you have to go shoot reference. I'm like, well, I guess that's one way to do it, right? But sometimes it's more about, for me, I'm using the reference or the inspiration, whether I shoot the reference or I find it online or I find it in a movie or something. It's to help me plan. It's to help me not be stressed out while I'm making the animation. It's to help me just know what I'm doing. It's my guide, right? I'm not copying it. Like, that's no fun. So it's just more there for me to make sure I'm on track. Also, it helps me communicate my idea to someone else that's not in my head, that doesn't know what I'm thinking. Now this is what I was saying before. You're going to find, I like to try to find images that may not look anything like the character. You know, maybe I find an image of a girl that doesn't have glasses on, but there's something about the way she's standing or the way that her hair is resting or something about her face or where she's putting her hands or something like that. And that starts to make me have that kind of feeling that I want to have for my final character, and I'll save that. You know, I'll drop that into a folder, and I'll be like, there's something about this. I gotta look at it and figure out like why do I like that. And then you know, I say I use Google search and that kind of stuff a lot, but don't turn it off when you leave the office. You know, at the grocery store you might see somebody, or you might just be walking down the street, or at the mall, or you know, you're watching a TV show, or you're just talking to someone and they offhandedly mention something, and you're like, well, that kind of sounds like that character I'm working on, you know, and dig a little deeper, or go check that out. I never really turn it off. I'm always sort of thinking about like, oh, that's kind of like that, or that's kind of like that, and I think we're all sort of guilty of that. You know, we can't help it as animators. And now this slide is a grab bag of some of the stuff that I found for May. These are the things that, when I work, like specifically, monitor on the left looks like this, with even more pictures on it and stuff. And then my other monitor, that's where I'm animating, that's where I'm working. Because I just want to sort of be surrounded by things that remind me of her and make me just kind of make sure that I'm on track and that I'm hitting that character, that feeling for the character that I really want to get. You know, I said so at Tippett I got to work on Enchanted. We did Pip the Chipmunk and stuff, but there was something about Amy Adams' performance in that was so sincere and you know, just innocent, but she's so appealing, but she's not, you know, dumb or you know, too young or anything, but you're like, oh, I want to spend time with her, you know? And then same thing with Rapunzel and Tangled. I mean, you talk about I think the highest bar set yet for CG animation. Again, she's younger. She's kind of got this clumsy vibe to her, but you just want to spend time with her. And that's what I wanted to try to get with May inside this game. Arnold Sang, actually, when I asked him to send me some reference, do you have something that has a character that is similar to what you see May being in the end? And he sent me this video that's down in the center. And that's from an anime called Read or Die. And this girl can control paper. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I had never heard of it. Yeah? I thought it was pretty interesting. She like flies around on the paper airplane and she can cut guys up, and it was really cool. But there's a certain quality to her character that I really liked. She, you know, she doesn't want to hurt people. She doesn't necessarily want to fight, but she's kind of forced into it, and she uses the skill that she has. A lot of these other images, like the bill pressing one in the center, it just was kind of like, okay, poses. You know, how could May stand? You know, how could she hold a weapon? You know, just things I found online, and then obviously, like, I'm trying to find, you know, sort of appealing, cute girls with glasses, because glasses are really tough to do because they, you know, you could easily lose facial features and stuff with the glasses, and they kind of overpower. And so, you know, Zooey Deschanel, and then the other examples. Just kind of keep looking at them like, okay, where are the glasses falling on the face? What happens when they smile? You know, where's the hair going? And just other sort of qualities about that I want to try to get into May. Okay, this is a slide with some rig stuff. So after I kind of gather all that information, And I gather all that information, and I have a rig. I just kind of play around. I just try stuff, right? I just want to see, like, okay, well, what can I do both technically and properly with her character? So, you know, some of these poses on the left are based on reference images that I found. Some of them are based on some early concept work, like that kind of stuff. But I'm just trying to figure it out, like what's too far to rotate this, or when does the backpack become a problem, you know, with her posing, or how far can she kind of bend over or twist and all that kind of stuff. And then the rig on that GIF on the right there with the rig, you can see it's pretty complex. It's pretty basic. If you guys have used a rig, it's got all the controls. I would say the coolest stuff are probably those noodle bones. I haven't seen those in a game character, only on film. And then the face is actually a really nice joint-driven setup for that. And then I want to point out on the image on the left there, you'll notice that there is no drone on her backpack. It's just kind of like a valve, like a closed valve thing, and I'll get back to that in a minute. So to dispel a little bit of the myth that, it wouldn't be a myth, probably not to any of us in the room, but it's not this simple. It doesn't go, someone draws a picture, someone makes a model, and then it just magically is done in the game. There's a lot of steps in between. One of the really nice things that we do as far as the process, we have block out models very early on. You saw it in the previous slide. I'll go back real quick. For these poses that I did on the left. Oh, I think I went one too many. This is the block out model on the left side. And the idea is that we take the concept art that's been approved, and then the character modeler just busts it out as fast as possible so that it can get to rigging in and get to me, so that we can work in tandem. I can help say, you know, with the rig, I need this in the rig, or I need more geometry here, or this isn't working, and then we take that and we get that into the game as fast as we can. And then from there, there's really there's no surprises, right? Because we're working on it the whole entire time. As far as technically how this movement set is created, we do an 8-way movement set, and then we just we'll layer aims on top and some turn animations in the idle and stuff. It's not the most crazy technical thing. It's pretty straightforward, but my goal is to take that and just really like try to squeeze out as much character and personality as I can in there. So this is just running through most of her movement, and that's the final model on the right side. That's the final in-game assets. So when I sat down to work on Mei, you know, she's standing there in bind pose, and I got to figure out, like, okay, well, how do I pose her? Like, what is she going to do? And so I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the other female characters in the game. What did we do with them? Who are they? What are their characters? Where does she fall in there? Because I kept hearing things like, well, she's shy. She's unsure. She's kind of nerdy and younger, right? And the thing that struck me as I looked at these are just the concept. These are the concept images for these characters, but the idle poses are relatively in the same spot in game. I look at this and I'm like, oh, these are superheroes. Like these are very confident stances. And when I look at this, I just see A's. I just see big A shapes, right? Feet, you can't see my feet, but I'm standing like, Symmetra or whatever right now. Feet are super wide apart and firmly planted on the ground. And most all of them, shoulders are back, chest is pushed out, neck is very long, elongated, the head is, looking up, that kind of stuff. That to me says confident and strong and superhero and, don't mess with me sort of thing. None of those things say shy, I'm not confident, I'm scared, or, I'm nerdy, right? And so just to give you an idea, this is what I see when I look at it, and that's what I mean when I say A shapes. And just to make sure I went down that road, I took the block out and I posed it exactly like the concept art, which was this strong A shape. And I didn't feel like that was her. That doesn't say any of those things to me. Again, her legs, her feet are very wide apart. Even her hand on her hip that doesn't make sense to me. She's kind of looking up, like all heroic, as well as the shoulders being back, and she's very open and sort of exposed. None of those things say, shy, unsure, and kind of introverted and young to me. So the next step in the process is, all right, now I'm just going to bust out as many idle poses as I can using the blockout model. And the first thing I noticed after, I looked at all that reference and imagery that I found, the characters that I felt were more unsure and fit, like kind of gave me the feeling that I wanted to get from Mei, always seemed to have their feet together, right? Maybe some of them even had their toes, pushed together, or knees bent in. And then since the design limitation, I didn't have to have a two-handed weapon, I thought, okay, that gives me something to work with, right? If I have this left hand that's free, I can totally use that to my advantage. If it's stuck on the gun, then that takes away one of those tools for me. So this is kind of like the realm I landed in right off the bat. Her knees and her feet are kind of bent together, and then I wanted her to still sort of feel exposed, not too closed off. So I decided to kind of open her up and stretch her arm out in front and put her hand behind her. This also helped me show that she's a little off balance, and I think that was the key. When the other heroes, I look at them and they're that strong A shape, they're just grounded. Like you couldn't push them over. Like if you ran up to them and pushed them, they wouldn't fall over. But I wanted her to feel like a little off balance, because then I think then you start to get this shy and uncertain kind of feeling from her. And then you think about someone on a tightrope or something, like they're going to have that hand out the whole time. And so that's where that hand came from that's out there on the side. And now for gameplay reasons, we always try to keep the weapon facing forward so that you always know, because it's super fast paced, so you always know where the player is aiming. And so there's a little bit of a bend, like a little bit of a bend on her elbow there, but really it's pretty straight out so that you know right where she's facing. And everything was playing nicely, the tube was going to work and stuff, and the whole team was really digging this. And so I did a few more iterations, and then we landed on the final one. The video on the right is actually from one of the milestones where we finally now we have the drone model in on the top, and this was just her idle pose. It's the first thing we do is just get that idle pose figured out. And this was just to show the team, like, okay, this is the direction. This was approved. Everyone liked it, and I'm trying to, make her appealing, but not in a frumpy, unattractive kind of way. So, I'm thinking about things like a little bit of the hip coming out, get some of that in there, because she's a young girl, she wants to, she aspires to be what these other superheroes are and stuff. And after we do that, we move on to the run. So we nail down that idle pose. It's not even an idle animation yet. It's just a pose. We figured that out. And someone asked me the other day, actually, if I worry about doing the idle pose and transitioning out of it, and like if I worry about that's going to cause me a problem or something. And it's way in the back of my head I'm thinking about that, but really I want to just nail the character first. And I'll deal with that later. If that's a problem, like her feet are too close together or something, I'll deal with that later, but I'd rather get that character figured out. So this is actually, this is my first pass run cycle on her, just real quick. This was actually I just screen capped this video for one of our meetings to where we could just kind of talk about it. Again, her arm's out there. I really wanted to feel like, she's really pumping there to keep going. And there's something kind of cute and light about it. I didn't want it to feel too heavy. For my personal process, as far as like animating a run cycle, the way that I find is best for me is I just find one pose that sort of feels like her. And usually it's kind of that full extension pose or maybe a passing pose, depending on the character. Once I find that pose, then I just take that root node, and I just kind of find that sort of feel to it, and that's all I'm animating. And so she's in that pose, and she's just, doing that until it starts to feel like, yeah, that's that feeling I want to get in there. So hers is pretty quick pace there. And then everything else just kind of like falls into place. Like, okay, well, if she's up here, then that means her feet have to move in order to catch her when she's down. And it kind of just, I don't want to say it does it for me, but it's pretty straightforward. Now, this is the final, this is an example of just all of the assets put together in the final whole package. Some of the things I want to talk about here is how can, I want to try to get personality into this. And so far we're talking about, one asset with this run. Some of the stuff, coat flaps. I feel like the coat flaps, I'm squashing the boots a little bit, making them kind of squash and stretch when she's running. As well as the backpack kind of has a nice kind of secondary motion to it. The hood, there's a little bit of action on there. The tube I get for free, because that's just dynamics in the game. And we made it so that it felt kind of nice and soft and jiggly. But these are the types of things that I feel like support her character. If she wasn't, young and a little bit, her outfit's a little softer and that kind of stuff, she would, so let's say I'm going to do like a cute puppy dog, right? Well, you think about like big floppy ears and like maybe it's like some fat under the neck or they're always just jiggly and stuff, right? And you see that and you see him running and he's cute and he's appealing and stuff. But then you think of a big gnarly, pit bull or Doberman or something. And if they're running at you, probably nothing's jiggling. Like they are just, tensed up, ready to attack and, they're grown up. They're just all lean muscle and they're ready to go. That's the kind of stuff that I'm trying to think about while I'm in there, just animating a run, just a run cycle, right? Here's a good example of side by side with Reinhardt's run. Hopefully. There we go. So Reinhardt's a tank. He's a huge damage dealer. His run is super, super staccato. Feels really heavy, feels really tight. And then you have Mei on the other side, a little softer, a little floatier. Everything's kind of got a nice little settle to it as far as her coat is concerned, and even just the tube and stuff. But Reinhardt is just this big, hunkin' mass of metal. All right, I got to pick up the pace. Okay, this guy, one of my favorite parts of this character. The fun story behind this is, originally there was she always had something that she had to throw for her ultimate that creates this snowstorm. And I pitched to the character team, because this is kind of like what's paid the bills for years, doing like cute little characters and stuff. I was like, what if it had, eyes and like could be another character and stuff. And so we came up with this where he's got and I told him, I was like, all I need are just eyes. If you can give me little ears, then that's a plus, but I could do it just with eyes. And we didn't want to break the bank either, like with going with, using effects or like scrolling textures or things for the eyes. And so I said, well, just give me, on the bottom left there, just give me 2 polygons. I just need polygons, and then give me a couple joints in there, and I'll deal with it. And then that gives me, one thing, it doesn't break the bank, and 2, it gives me full control over the performance of this. And it's super secondary character. It's not, Snowball is not, we don't want Mei to be defined by Snowball, but these are the types of things where you can kind of work smart, and like sneak in personality in there in everything that you do. And a quick example, like you see the little blink there, it's just those 6 joints just blinking real quick, just make some cool shapes. And then to make him smile, on the top right is, I actually had to take those polygons and like rotate them in order to get those upside down U shapes, because I couldn't get it the other way. So anytime he goes to smile, like he does in that little GIF, it's just one frame. Like they'll just switch over one frame and they'll be there. And people get the feel for it. Now, all of this stuff that we're doing, all this like front end work for figuring out characters and who they are and how they move, the really fun part is when we get to do the hero select. And that's kind of like the last thing we do, because the model is finally done, the rig is final, we know who the character is. And this is an example of all of the 21 heroes, all of their hero selects. And we usually spend, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks on a hero select. And that might sound crazy as far as schedule goes, but because, animation and strong character personalities is such a huge pillar for the game, that's something that we budget into our time so that we have time to do that. This was actually, that Tracer hero select was what sold me on the job at Blizzard. When I sat down to play the game, and it was just huge, it was just right there, it was super high fidelity, really crisp, and it was just the animation. She doesn't say anything, nothing, just animation. And these are the in-game assets too, so you get an idea of like what we're working with inside the game. And there she is. There's even more, it'll keep going, but then after that we've got emotes that we get to do. There's a whole bunch of different emotes in the game for all the different characters. More are being added into the beta, actually. This is an example of her signature, the one on the left. The idea is just, what would that character do if they were to have a little personal moment? And I went back to thinking about, Amy Adams in Enchanted, or like a sort of Disney princess sort of thing with Snowball going around, and she's just, she's just happy and in awe watching it happen, and some little snow particles. And then on the right, it was an emote I just finished not too long ago, which is her cheer. And for her, again, she's just giddy, she's young, she's excited, she can't control herself, so she just kind of erupts. And I was watching Inside Out a lot, which I think kind of influenced that a bit. But again, it's like I can't turn it off, right? Like, I'm watching that movie and I'm like, oh, joy is just so pure, And it's like, that's what I kind of want to get that into Mei. And again, she sticks out like a little, not a sore thumb. I think she fits in just really nice into the roster, but she scratches that itch that we didn't have yet in the lineup. Like, she's that cute, appealing, younger character. Then the really fun stuff are play the games. Now, this is 5 seconds, and the animators get to control it all. We get to do the camera. We get to do everything. These are a ton of fun. This is after doing all the, because we also have to implement all the assets and see the assets all the way through the pipe, and we have to manage all that stuff. This stuff is a lot of fun to do. You just get to sink your teeth into it and just have a really good time. And what's really nice, too, is by the time we do these, we're super comfortable with the characters, with the rigs, with how they work, and we just know the characters so well so that we just have a ton of fun. And we're always trying to... incidentally, that's Ryan's, that's mine. There's one here for every animator on the team. I made sure to get in here. I'm going to let this play through one more time, and then we have one last slide. But this is where, again, it's just so much fun to do these things. It's like the best of both worlds. We get to do these really fun game assets on a really cool game, and then we get to really dig deep into these characters and try to push it. We have awesome support from the rest of the team, too. Like, Effects is all in on this. We come up with a crazy idea. Like, I did a frostbite, or no, this bubble gum one is perfect. I was like, can we do bubble gum? And they're like, sure, we'll figure it out. And then the last slide here, this is an example of, again, all this work we're doing on the game dev team, trying to just nail these personalities and make them really unforgettable characters, is actually influencing everything else that Blizzard is making for Overwatch, which is such an awesome place to be. So down on the bottom left, you have Reaper and Tracer there from the original cinematic that shipped. Those were taken from the in-game animation assets. The way that Reaper does his Death Blossom and stuff, they looked right at that. The way that Tracer, her guns actually go into her arm compartments there, they did that in the cinematic because we do that in-game. Same thing with the graphic novels and stuff that are coming out, as well as some of the cool stuff that's in this video. Yeah, and that is it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and bother me, or grab me on Twitter and just ask me any questions, or if I can ever help anyone with anything, like, let me know. I'm on all ears. So Any questions? We only have a couple minutes, or should we just 4 minutes? All right. Let's work our way from this side. How does that sound? Does that work? So let's go with you.
Hi. I want to know, where do you find the inspiration? And please don't answer with Google, because we the mortals, I think that we find inspiration in your work in Blizzard or maybe other companies like Riot. But you guys, where do you find it?
I would say the first thing is just always being observant. Like, as an animator, I think you just have to always just be looking at things. Like, you might, like I said, you might see someone in a grocery store, or, you know, just walking around, and that's where a lot of inspiration comes from. I'm super inspired by what my colleagues are doing all the time. Like, I'm always playing new games or watching new movies, or, you know, keeping tabs on what's, it's a lot of the same thing that probably inspires you, but technically, when I sit down to work, I probably go to Google first.
Okay,
You know, yeah. And then we'll go, okay, right there.
What would you say is your favorite single thing you've ever animated?
Ever?
Ever.
In the history of my illustrious career? I would have to say that Daisy, who is the alien dog creature in Evolve, is probably my favorite. Yeah, mostly because that, again, is similar to the snowball drone, wasn't supposed to be there, and then we were like, let's make a dog. And then I rigged it and animated it and like implemented it all the way through, and so it's like I'm super proud of the people I worked with when I made it, and also just like how it looks and moves and stuff. I think it's really good. Thanks. Okay, right there.
How long do your brainstorming sessions go when you're starting to develop the character?
Sometimes we probably shoot for maybe like 30, 40 minutes. But those are like when it's, you know, it pops up on the calendar and is like, you have a meeting, come talk about this thing. But we're probably brainstorming like constantly, right? Like just little pop-up things happen around desks, or, you know, we're working on a new hero here, and, you know, we're checking out the weapon. Like, what about this? Or what do we think about this? You know, or what do we think about this clothing or something? And so you'll kind of hear that, or someone might tap you on the shoulder, and then you just go and you just kind of talk. And we had one the other day that I think went on for like 2 hours or something, which is not normal, but it's good. We get that, you know, we get all that information out. So I'd probably say that initial one where we all get together and we really dedicate time to it is probably like 30 or 45 minutes.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. One more. You know, we can talk afterwards though, right? Okay, let's go right here. Sorry, guys. I can hear you, and I'll repeat it.
Okay. How long would you say it takes you to go from the moment you get that rig to get that foundation in the idle and the run?
How long? So how long does it take to go from the initial rig to idle and run cycles and stuff? To get that foundation? It's less than a week. I'd probably say 3 or 4 days. I mean, you got to consider 8-hour days. Like, that's all I'm doing all day is sitting there doing that. As long as there's not any technical hiccups, like rig problems or anything like that, it's probably that second or third day where I'm honing in on what it's going to be. And then by that 4th day, it's probably getting locked down. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.